Welcome back to the FPL video and podcast. I'll be covering the best forwards in Fantasy Premier League with a top 15 overall. Check out my best goalkeepers, defenders and midfielders videos, and there's more headed your way, like the best budget players, differentials, and also players to avoid, more drafts, the team selection, rating your teams is also coming up on this channel, so be sure to stay tuned by smashing the like button, getting this video to over 200 likes, and also subscribing to FPL Dylan. It'd be massively appreciated, and your support throughout the summer has been incredible. Let's also keep on pushing towards new goals on all social media platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and the Discord server, as we're close to reaching 1,000 members there as well. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Cody Gakpo had a solid Euro tournament, winning the joint Golden Boot with 6 other players, and in the Premier League last season, he scored 8 times and provided 5 assists, with 66 shots being the standout stat. I don't think the other underlying numbers are particularly great, but he still managed to get over 100 FPL points, and he only started a handful of games. I think it was around 18 in the end. His ownership is 7.4%. He's priced at 7.5 million, and Liverpool arguably have the best fixtures in the opening 8 game weeks of the season, and during the recent friendlies, they've looked very strong, beating Arsenal and Manchester United, and in the recent friendly, it was a 3-0 win for Liverpool over their fiercest rivals. They also beat Real Betis 1-0. So Liverpool are looking quite strong despite missing the likes of Cody Gakpo and many other key players like Virgil van Dijk because of their international commitments at the Euros and Copa America. But once they're back, they're only going to strengthen Liverpool even further, especially in terms of squad depth, and they could go on a great run in the opening 8 game weeks and cement themselves as a title contender in back-to-back seasons. Another player who hasn't featured in pre-season so far is Richarlison, and Tottenham recently played against Bayern Munich. They lost 2-1, but over the course of the recent friendlies, they've been quite solid actually. They've scored a lot of goals. They beat QPR 2-0, Hearts 5-1, and Vissel Kobe 3-2, and the likes of Heung-min Son have looked very sharp. Perhaps not so much in the Bayern Munich game, but I still think they boast plenty of options in the midfield, and Richarlison has been reclassified from a midfielder to a forward, which does decrease his appeal, but at 7 million and such low ownership, I think Richarlison can get double digits in goals once again if he can start from game week 1 and remain injury free for the rest of the season. He got 16 big chances in the last campaign and several good underlying numbers, 122 FPL points, and it was a big improvement from his debut season at Tottenham where he only scored once, and that came against Liverpool at Anfield. The opening 2 game weeks look great against Leicester and Everton, then it's Newcastle away and Arsenal, and you'd want to avoid most Spurs assets, if not all, for those 2 particular matches, but I still think the likes of Richarlison can deliver in the big games. Wissa scored a penalty in a 5-2 win over Wimbledon in a recent friendly, but Ivan Toney and Mbeumo weren't on the pitch, so I believe Wissa is third in command for penalties. Toney might leave the club, he's always linked with a move away, and that could open the door for Wissa to have plenty of penalties in this upcoming season whenever Mbeumo isn't on the pitch. He's priced at 6 million, he's got an ownership of 2.6%, and he had a very good campaign last time out, getting more starts than ever and more minutes, which he definitely deserves. 12 goals and 4 assists, 15 bonus points, and 131 FPL points overall, with some very solid underlying numbers like 19 big chances and 67 shots overall. His XG was 10.54, so I think Wissa could be a great option for game weeks 1 and 3, but you can't ignore those away games against Liverpool and Manchester City. Can Wissa or the likes of Mbeumo and these Brentford assets do something in those games? They can do, but the chances are quite slim, especially Liverpool looking so imperious during pre-season, and Manchester City will be the favourites for the title once again. Darwin Núñez has some of the best underlying numbers of any forward covered today, and he got 11 goals and 11 fantasy assists in the last Premier League season, which isn't bad whatsoever, but with all the chances he had, 34 to be exact, you'd expect much more, and his finishing just isn't improving. It's very erratic. Sometimes it's on point when he's in the mood. Darwin Núñez can score a brace or get multiple goal contributions, but then he can miss multiple big chances in a certain match and blank for quite a few matches in a row, and that's always the frustration with Darwin. And I think minutes will be a big concern for most Liverpool forwards, with the exception of Mohamed Salah. They've got plenty of squad depth with Diaz and Gakpo competing for the left wing spot, Darwin Núñez and Gakpo also competing for the the lone striker role, and Mohamed Salah can play both on the right-hand side and also as a lone striker. But Darwin Núñez will be a good option whenever he's on the pitch, and I still rank him slightly higher than Gakpo, but with the new manager Arne Slot, I could see Gakpo improving quite significantly this season, and I think the pecking order could change as the season progresses. Darwin got 132 FPL points last season, one more than Wissa in fact, but I think Darwin is still capable of getting double digits in goals and assists, but is he going to get as many minutes as last season? Perhaps not, and even then, he was on the bench on multiple occasions in Jurgen Klopp's final season at Liverpool, and Darwin's underlying stats, as I mentioned earlier, are just simply astounding. 83 shots in the box, 108 shots overall, an XG figure of 16.23, and even 11 big chances created. So let's see if Darwin can deliver and be more consistent with his finishing, but I have to say he is still a solid choice in the forward position, but I wouldn't put him in the top 10. Rasmus Højlund is the complete opposite of Darwin Núñez because he has poor underlying numbers, 38 shots sums that up to a T, yet he still managed to score 10 times, which is impressive to a certain extent, and I think he's a good finisher, but his positioning could certainly improve, whilst with Darwin Núñez, he gets into great positions constantly, but he's not able to finish them on a consistent basis. Now, Rasmus Højlund picked up an injury in that 2-1 defeat against Arsenal after scoring the opening goal, and he's set to miss 6 weeks worth of action, and some of these fixtures that he's going to miss include Fulham, Brighton and Southampton, where Højlund really could have made a difference. So it's a big shame, and hopefully he recovers soon. And Man United are experiencing a bit of an injury crisis before the season has already begun. Despite his poor underlying numbers, I think Højlund is a very solid striker option once he returns from injury. At number 10, I've gone for Matheus Cunha, who comes in with a favourable 6.5 million price tag, and his ownership is only 3%. He's a massive differential that you should consider for your FPL teams. He got 12 goals and 7 assists in the last season with 15 bonus points and 135 FPL points in just 29 starts. The big put-off though is Game Week 1 against Arsenal away, and in Game Weeks 2 and 4, you've got home fixtures against Chelsea and Newcastle, so things don't get much easier for Wolves. Their opening start to the season isn't great, but Cunha scored in a recent friendly against West Ham, a 3-1 victory there for Wolverhampton Wanderers, and they've looked quite decent in pre-season. They lost against Crystal Palace 3-1, but they beat Leipzig 3-0 in the most recent game they had. So Matheus Cunha is one to look out for. He's certainly in the top 3 assets that Wolves have to offer, and at 6.5 million and below, I don't see many forwards that are better than Cunha. Having said that, one of those forwards could be Chris Wood, who comes in at 6 million, and his opening 3 games are fantastic on paper against Bournemouth at home, Southampton away and Wolves at home. His ownership is 5.2%. It's steadily increasing, and he's had a very good pre-season with goals against Millwall and Chesterfield. He got 11 goals in the last Premier League campaign with 1 assist and 22 bonus points, which is very impressive to say the least, and 131 FPL points. So to start this season, Chris Wood would definitely be right up there if you're looking for that third striker who's at a cheaper price point and can enable you to go for more expensive midfielders, and perhaps Erling Haaland up front. Liverpool away in Game Week 4 looks very tough. You might want to sell him in Game Week 4 or at least bench him for that particular game. But for the first 3 game weeks, I think Chris Wood is arguably in the top 5 best forwards in the Premier League, but I wouldn't say the same thing over the course of the season. I have placed Julian Alvarez in the top 8, but he's heavily linked with a move away to Atletico Madrid and Paris Saint-Germain, so he might not be a Man City player by Game Week 1, and Alvarez, of course, would have to be replaced in this top 15 list, and that's where Fulcro could come in and would reshuffle these strikers in order. But Alvarez comes in at 7 million, his ownership is 3.2%, 11 goals and 11 assists, just like his fellow South American Darwin Núñez. 67 key passes is a very underrated stat for the Argentine. He does create a lot of chances and also scores a few goals, but he can be quite erratic with his finishing at times as well. And at the Copa America, he scored a few goals and helped Argentina lift the Copa America, and also participated in the Olympic squad and only got an assist. He definitely looked burnt out by the end of that competition. So going into this Premier League season, if he stays at Man City, will he start in Game Week 1? I don't think that'll be the case, but he's asking for more game time. Will Pep give it, and will the Argentine stay? Those are key questions that we need to have answered, but I wouldn't really recommend Alvarez at the moment with all the uncertainty about his future. Nicholas Jackson hasn't featured in preseason either, and Chelsea looked very shaky in the recent friendlies. Only one victory against Club America, a 3-0 win, but then it's a 2-2 draw against Wrexham, a 4-1 loss against Celtic, and they lost 4-2 against Man City and conceded twice in 4 minutes. On 2 occasions, they actually conceded 2 goals in the space of a minute or so, and that simply isn't good enough. But Jackson does get a lot of big opportunities, 36 big chances. Only Erling Haaland and Isak got more. 14 goals and 6 assists was also a very decent return for his first season in the Premier League. His ownership is 3.3%. Yeah, another differential cover today. And I think that 7-point family and price tag will put many FPL managers off. You've got Nkunku at 6.5 million, who I covered in the best midfielders video on podcast. Cole Palmer will also be much more template. But I think Jackson is probably the 3rd best Chelsea asset overall. And 142 FPL points could be bettered this time round. But you'd certainly want to avoid Jackson and a lot of Chelsea assets in Game Week 1 against Man City, but between Game Weeks 2 to 8, Chelsea have fantastic fixtures, and that's where you'd want possibly 2 or 3 Blues assets. But for now, I think 1 or 2 does suffice, and Jackson just isn't quite as good as Nkunku or Cole Palmer. Dominic Solanke got good minutes under his belt. He came on as a substitute against Wrexham in a 1-1 draw and started against Arsenal and played 64 minutes in that preseason friendly, so he should be ready to go in Game Week 1, where he faces Nottingham Forest away, a fixture where he scored a hat-trick last season, so that could be very enticing. But then it's Newcastle, Everton and Chelsea. Those fixtures aren't particularly great, and that's a trend that carries on for Bournemouth beyond Game Week 4. Solanke's ownership is 10.4%. He had his personal best in terms of goals, 19, 175 FPL points, 109 shots is very impressive as well as 29 big chances, some great underlying numbers, and of course he delivered on all fronts. But Solanke is definitely less appealing this time round with the increase to his price tag, and you've got better options who do make the cut into the top 5. Mateta had a strong end to the Premier League season, especially since the appointment of Oliver Glasner, coupled with the trio of Elise, Mateta and Eze working wonders. With Elise moving on to Bayern Munich, I think there'll be a drop-off for the other two, but not too significant. They should still produce several double-digit returns and be quite consistent with the goals and assists, just not to the same level as we saw towards the end of last season. Palace's opening fixtures are quite impressive, with Brentford, West Ham and Leicester in the opening 4, and even Chelsea. The way they're defending at the moment in pre-season, I think Mateta and co can produce several goals in that fixture at Stamford Bridge. Mateta scored 16 times and got 7 fantasy assists in the last Premier League campaign, 22 bonus points, a healthy number of FPL points overall, and his ownership is only 8%. He's priced at 7.5 million, and I'd rank him above Solanke purely because I think Palace are a better team than Bournemouth, and I think they'll carry on some of this good form from pre-season and also towards the end of the last campaign into this new one from Game Week 1 and beyond. Kai Havertz scored in his first preseason start against Liverpool in that 2-1 defeat, and he looked quite sharp at left centre mid, and throughout most of last season he played in that position, but we saw a massive upturn in terms of underlying numbers, goals and assists when he played up front, and he was scoring or assisting in practically every single game during the run-in, and Arsenal need more of that in the opening 7 game weeks of this season, where they face Aston Villa, Tottenham and Man City all away from home. Kai Havertz also had solid underlying numbers, 24 big chances, 62 shots inside the box and 180 FPL points, but just like Richarlison, he suffers a reclassification from a midfielder to a forward, so I don't think he'll get as many FPL points this time round, or at least it'll be very difficult for him to surpass that, but I think he'll score more goals if he can play most games up front. We're now entering the podium of the top 3 forwards in FPL for the upcoming season, and they're all template picks, especially Isak, who comes in at 55.9% ownership, and the fixtures contribute greatly towards that. And I have to say they're good short-term fixtures, but not medium to long-term. They do get more difficult after Game Week 4, but Southampton, Bournemouth, Tottenham and Wolves look very appealing. Even Tottenham in Game Week 3, which looks very difficult on paper because Tottenham are a good team, but Newcastle have destroyed them in the last 2 home meetings with 10 goals in that time frame. 21 goals and 4 assists was also very impressive from Isak last season. 40 big chances, and good stats all round. Also good number of FPL points. If he can stay fit, I think Isak could get close to 200 FPL points and perhaps even go over that tally. He hasn't really stayed fit throughout his time at Newcastle. Callum Wilson could be on the way out, and that opens the door for Isak to start every single game for the Toon, and no Champions League football, no Europa League either. That could really benefit the likes of Isak in terms of minutes and staying injury free. At number 2, I've gone for Ollie Watkins, and the main reason why I've ranked him above Isak is because of the injury record. If Isak can stay injury free, I'd possibly swap these two and put Isak just above him, because I think Newcastle could have a better season, and that's obviously going to be very difficult to judge. And Aston Villa have made some great signings in the summer, but they've looked very shaky in pre-season with 3 consecutive defeats against Columbus, where they lost 4-1, a 2-0 defeat to RB Leipzig, and also to America, they lost 1-0, and even Chelsea beat them 3-0 just a few days ago. But Watkins comes in at 53.7% ownership, the second highest of any player in the game, and he had a standout season with 19 goals and 18 fantasy assists. I don't think he's going to do those numbers once again, but you just never know. I think Watkins could get over 20 goals this time round, but far less assists in the upcoming season. 96 shots inside the box is the standout statistic, and also 33 big chances, 228 FPL points. If he can better that this year, then he's going to do a massive job, and he's going to have one of the best seasons of any striker throughout the world. Aston Villa's fixtures are great, even beyond Game Week 4, despite facing Arsenal in Game Week 2, and Aston Villa did get the better of the Gunners on both occasions last season. It could be different this time round, but I have to say Watkins is fixture-proof. My biggest concern is going to be the balance between Champions League and the Premier League, but once Watkins and the other key players have returned from the Euros and Copa America, I think they'll provide a massive boost, and Aston Villa won't struggle as they have done in recent pre-season games. The best forward in FPL for the upcoming season will be Erling Haaland once again. He's going to face Chelsea away in Game Week 1. He just scored a hat-trick against them in the preseason friendly, and that has resulted in a surge in his ownership. It's now at 37.2%, and I think it could get close to 45%. Possibly even 50% by the time we get to the Game Week 1 deadline. He had an underwhelming season, so to speak, and still managed to get 27 league goals and 8 assists. I think it was a drop-off from his debut season where he took the league by storm, set the all-time goal-scoring record, but he is still putting in incredible numbers all round. 55 big chances is simply bonkers, but I think his finishing was quite erratic actually for his high standards in the last season, but I think he's going to get over 30 Premier League goals this time round, and possibly even more than the 36 he got in his first season. 217 FPL points was still very impressive considering the injuries he had and also the drop-off and the missed opportunities. And I have to say, Erling Haaland has been very sharp in pre-season. He scored against Celtic and also against AC Milan. Despite Man City losing both games, he came off of a slight niggle against Barcelona, quoting Pep Guardiola exactly there. So he came off at half-time, but he played against Chelsea and the rest is history. A hat-trick, a very good performance. He also scored a penalty. And there's no question that Erling Haaland is fit and raring to go from Game Week 1 despite some tough fixtures in the opening 6. I still think Man City can win the vast majority of those matches with Erling Haaland scoring a bucketload of goals. That concludes the best forwards in FPL for the upcoming season. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. As always, Erling Haaland is ranked at number 1 on Drafthound, just like he was with my list, but Drafthound have Gakpo, Jackson, Havertz and Isak in the top 5 in that order, with Jesus and Alvarez also high up and no Ollie Watkins to be seen. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's get this video to the 200 likes and let's keep on pushing towards 35 subscribers and beyond. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships, the Discord server, the FPL League, Drafthound, and also Spotify. Leave a 5-star review on my podcast. It goes a long way to support my channel. And for rating your team's videos and also the other pieces of content, keep your eyes peeled for that. And you can send in your teams on Twitter and Instagram by sending a screenshot of your squad. It can be on the app or the browser, but a preference would be if it was on the browser. And also you can send it through the Discord server. So all the links will be helpful. Thank you very much for all your support, and I'll see you very soon.